£3,000, the yearly cost to maintain an e-mountain bike. That's actually more than maintaining a Lamborghini in Chelsea. So did we get it right or did we get it wrong? Today, we'll have a look at the facts. Ridiculous, get real, cobblers. Our recent video on the real costs of e-mountain biking certainly did stir a hornet's nest of opinions when it comes to maintaining an e-mountain bike. And it certainly did prove the diversity of riders that are riding eMTBs and also people's attitudes towards maintenance. Now, Chris put up a variety of costs. Some of you guys fully agreed with them and many of you certainly did not. So today, we're going to go on a journey looking at the real facts behind maintaining an eMTB. We're going to be taking back some of the input from you guys for sure, and we're going to be visiting people with a different background and usage of eMTB. Because let's face it, we certainly don't want to frighten you guys about servicing and maintaining an e-mountain bike, but at the same time, we really need everyone to be realistic of the costs involved. Before we dive into the details, it's very important for everyone to bear in mind we all ride our eMTBs differently, and therefore the costs often reflect the type of use. A once-a-week forest ride in a hot climate will demand far less than a rider who goes out multiple times in a cool, temperate one. The bottom line on costs is this: it depends. It depends on how much you ride. Now this is massive. How you ride even, where you ride, the components you are replacing, and the type of bike you are riding. So what did Chris say to get some of you so fired up? Well, Chris gave an option which included depreciation and of course the servicing charges in that, a £3,500 option or a £1,500 option. But some feedback from you guys, and there was a considerable amount. Now, Pascal Carget said less than £500 a year. Lydia Faria says about 100, 150, but only rides 2,500 kilometres. Alan Bird, 0 costs for a year and €50 for 2 years. And the Kilburn Oracle finally has done 3,000 kilometres on his high bike and spent £10 on a chain, £18 on a chain ring and £28 on a cassette. However, there have been some counter arguments to the story. Jeremy Crouch says that probably about £600 per year for the average person. Ignore depreciation and be sensible. Yoda 1970 says Chris is actually underpricing and that many MTB parts are expensive and wear fast. Whereas Wizzy number 1 says depreciation is the big cost long term. And finally, Andrew Pete, 11-speed SRAM setup on a Levo, cassette lasted me around 1,000 miles and a new chain every 500 miles kept the chain pretty clean. Brake pads every 500 to 600 miles, one new butcher's grid every 1,000 miles, that's a tyre, rear hub bearing 1,000 miles and self-service of a fork and shock every 500 miles. Now, fantastic amount of feedback, and I have to say that really does illustrate the diverse range of e-mountain bikers out there. I would say on a personal level that Andrew Pete, the last comment there, is probably more in line with the costs I would say it takes to run an e-mountain bike. But now I'm going to go on a journey. We're going to visit some different people with different backgrounds and different attitudes to maintaining an eMTB. So my first stop then is my local bike shop, Ace Cycles in Monmouth, where hopefully Owain will give me some insight into the costs of running an e-mountain bike.
Do we think people under or overestimate the cost of running an e-bike? I'd probably say underestimate, to be honest. Like, how much is an XD driver cassette? It's probably thick end of £200 these days for a GX one. So it's expensive. But if you keep on top of your maintenance, probably isn't too painful. You know, prevention's better than cure. But then again, it depends where you ride, doesn't it? If we ride in the Wye Valley, very muddy, quite rocky, quite gritty, your maintenance costs are going to be a lot more than if you lived somewhere a bit flatter as well. You're not putting so much torque through your drivetrain. So you'd probably do 3 chains of cassette, and let's say you'd probably average about 300 to 400 miles a chain. If it's looked after, so every 1,000 miles, you'd probably end up doing a cassette on it. Let's say you need a drivetrain replacing, we'd probably start around £80. So that's for like a level 2 plus drivetrain, taking parts off and replacing them. And then cost of parts depends entirely on what's fitted. If you've got like a Shimano HG fitment cassette, you can buy those relatively inexpensively, £80 to £100. But if you're running XD stuff, yeah, it's quite pricey. You can be up to £170, £180 for a cassette.
Now, a broken or worn out cassette or tyre can vary in price massively, and it doesn't matter if you ride eMTB or MTB. I'm now going to visit a man who knows a thing or two about maintaining two wheels to get his perspective on the yearly costs. Now, my next port of call is a massive two-wheel man, John Walker. He's ridden motorcycle trials for many years. He is the former World Masters downhill champion and a person who has competed in the Paris-Dakar many times. John, your Trek rail is looking in fantastic nick, but the question is how much do you reckon you spend per year on maintaining it?
Probably £300.
Really?
Yeah.
How's that?
Not a lot more. It's not that I'm tight,
Yeah.
it's just that I do a lot of maintenance.
Right.
Maintenance is the key for keeping your mountain bike right.
Right.
Initially, when you buy your bike, you must check it over, go through the bolts, and then ride it. Obviously, if you ride it in the rain and the mud, you've more maintenance. The most thing that you must do to your bike is keep your drive chain clean. All your drive chain, you must clean your chain, take it off.
What about that? So cassettes then? 2 or 3 a year?
Normally, I've been e-biking for 5 years.
Yeah.
And normally I would run 2 cassettes a year for 5 chains, possibly 6.
Well, that sounds reasonable.
That's reasonable, but this year I've decided to go high on my maintenance, and I'm expecting to only use 1 cassette, 2, possibly 3 chains.
What?
That is down to cleaning my chain and then boiling it in wax, like the old trials guys used to do. Since I've been doing that,
Yeah.
I've measured my chain, 120 links,
Yeah.
and in 700 miles, it's stretched 2 millimeters.
Whoa.
That's all.
Wow.
That's all.
Okay,
And
well-
generally, it'll stretch probably 10 before you have to change it after about, So I'm expecting this chain to last me the whole year.
Wow, incredible bit of advice there from John.
What I would suggest as well is if you've got the money, you buy a set of wheels for your bike. Generally now, wheels, Boost and 148 will fit most bikes. So if you buy a set of wheels, you can interchange the tyres then. I'll expect to get through probably 3 rears,
Wow.
1, maybe just 1, maybe 2 fronts, but it'll be good for next year.
Yeah, but
You
then,
know-
but, that's still a significant cost, isn't it?
Yes,
That's
it
still
is.
That's still 200 quid, right, on tyres?
It is, yeah. 200 quid on tyres. You want another 2 chains, plus the one that it comes with,
yeah.
and then a couple of sets of brake pads.
Right.
Everything else is down to breakage,
Yeah.
really. You either buy a lot of parts and not spend a lot of time on your bike, or you spend a lot of time on your bike and you don't have to buy the parts. It's time against money. So if you've got a lot of time or you've got time to do your maintenance, then you won't spend a lot of money. But if you haven't time, then you're obviously gonna spend more money because you won't have time to do your maintenance. Stuff gets dirty, stuff gets worn, and you miss things if you're not doing your maintenance.
So there you go, guys. Some interesting words from John Walker. Certainly has made me think twice. But am I a parts man or am I a time man?
Yeah,
I think I might have to go and
parts man.
I might have to go and think about that. What type of e-bike you ride is of massive importance, and there are many perspectives to take into account. Many of you watching this channel will be riding e-mounted bikes, but there's also bikes which are more orientated to commuting, fire roads and gravel. So we're now going to go and visit a man who's pretty scared of putting his hand into his pocket. He rides e-bikes which are more suited to gravel and roads, and also knows a thing or two when it comes to the engineering involved. My question to you is, what would you estimate the yearly cost on some of the consumable parts of your hub drive homemade bikes?
Well, I've yet to spend anything really. I got it going. We've got two bikes, both are hub drives and they're direct drives at the back. Haven't spent anything yet. I will be changing brake pads.
How much per year? I need to know.
Well, I don't know because I don't buy them. When I bought the brake pads, they came, well, I didn't buy the brake pads. What I did was I bought the new brakes, the wire ones, which I am using at the moment, but I will be replacing them. And they came with 2 sets each of spare pads.
Right.
So maybe I can go a year without having to spend any more money.
Cassettes though, you're an engineer. Give us an idea into how many cassettes you might use per year on that hub drive bike.
Well, because the motor's doing some of the work and I'm doing some more of the work, I think that I'll probably get through the year without any problem at all.
Right.
I do use a good lubricant, and that helps me through. And I check the chain to make sure the chain's okay.
Yeah.
So the transmission is a bit medieval because it is a derailleur.
Yeah.
And I should be moving up, and I hope to move up shortly to have an encased gear system.
Right.
Maybe an Alpine or something like that, because they are very reliable. They don't break chains, they don't lose bits of metal, and generally they're quieter and they're protected from the environment. So I will go shortly with that gearing. I will upgrade.
What are your thoughts on, the replacement costs of mid-drive bikes?
Mid-drive bikes I do like. With your encouragement, I'm getting a bit nearer to liking them. And what I don't like is the fact that you've got a very large cassette on the back and you've got a shorter distance between the chainring and the rear section. And what happens is you've got alignment problems there. And this is called cross-chaining, I understand. And what happens is it skews the chain as well as twists it. And you're really looking at a problem there, which is of your own making. If you go for that big cog, you're going to get more misalignment, more tear. And I know these chains are breaking. I hear from other people that have got them. They are. On my bike, I've got quite a small cassette.
Yeah.
I don't know how many teeth on the large one, but it doesn't do that badly.
Are you suggesting then that maybe some of the component parts of mid-drive bikes aren't actually up to the task in hand?
I'm saying that they are medieval, they're under-engineered, and we've just got to a situation where I think things have got bigger and bigger, just like when you go to buy a car. A Mini was a good-sized car in the 1960s. Now, you can't even find it in the road because it's too small. So things have got larger, and unfortunately, they've got larger for no good reason at all.
So there you go, folks, some different perspectives on the yearly costs of maintaining your eMTB. Bear in mind our guests didn't touch on such things as depreciation and insurance, which certainly will add to the costs. But hopefully that will put you at ease, hopefully, in terms of the annual maintenance costs for such things as cassettes and chains and brake pads. And I think John Walker and Owain at Ace Cycles, they're very much off-road riders. They spend lots of time in the mud and dirt. So, as we mentioned, the climate, the rider, the bike, the component specification, all has a massive effect on that final cost. But as ever, I think this is a huge subject, and let's continue the discussion, because I'm sure there's more to come when it comes to servicing and maintaining your eMTB.